Okay, let's go back to our learning. So when we open up RapidMiner Studio, we see this. We can go to here, and we were here. And we are going to use two sets of data in this example, not just one. And one of them is called products, and the other is called transactions. So here's one of them called products, and the other one is called transactions. So let's do one thing before we continue with this, and let's learn how to write files or write something in the repository to an Excel file. So to do that, let's take, for example, this one called transactions, which I'll just put here. And what we need is something called write Excel, or you can type in export, and it usually shows up if you type that, or you can type in write Excel, and you do this. And then we can connect everything, but let's click on this first, and you can see that you have these parameters here. And this one called Excel file is where you give the name of the file. It's a little bit confusing the way they have this set up. But anyway, let's just click on here, and it shows you something like this. And you have a folder here, and you can give it a name. And you can see that this is gray before you give it a name. But anyway, we'll call it transactions, trans, and it's going to be an Excel type file. And this is kind of strange that they use the word open for this, but anyway, you have to click here, open. I guess that means opening a connection to that file. And there's some other parameters here, the date format and number format. These are codes for the way you want things to display. You can look up what these mean. And here we're saying that it's an Excel file. Okay, now let's connect these, but let's just check this. It says make a connection. It's missing a connection, so we have to do that. Or you can do help me solve this problem, and it makes it for you. Anyway, we have to go here and here as well. Okay, now let's try running this. Okay, now and you can see that it's here. And if we open it up, it looks like this. And let's do the same thing for the other one as well. So I'll go back to here, and I'll disconnect this, and I will delete this. If you leave it in there, I think it doesn't let you continue if you have an unconnected node. Anyway, I'll just delete it and put the products one here and connect it here. And let's call it, I already have one called products. I already did this, so I'll call it prod 2. And let's see what happens. And let's try it again. Okay, so now we have that. And then we can check to see if it's there. And I have to refer, oh, here it is, prod 2. So we were able to write both of these as Excel files. And again, how we did that was the write Excel. Now you could also write a CSV file, or you can write an Excel file. Now, if you have an external database somewhere and you want to write to that database, I guess you would use this. Okay, let's get rid of these and continue with the tutorial. Okay, let's go on to the next part of the tutorial. So this is called creating and removing columns. And columns are often called attributes or variables, right? Because we saw that, for example, here we had a survived column and a passenger class and so on. So those are the variables, or they're also called the attributes. So sometimes for the purpose of making a model or making predictions about something, like in this case we're thinking about predicting who's going to survive and who isn't, sometimes we might want to remove a column. Now that seems a little bit anti-intuitive, but sometimes it turns out that for certain models or certain algorithms, we saw a tree algorithm already, but for certain algorithms, removing columns or removing, it's actually when you remove a column, of course, you're removing information. But anyway, removing columns or removing information can actually make better predictions. So it doesn't seem like that would be true, but it is true. And additionally, sometimes we want to create new columns. So we'll talk about that here. So this is called working with attributes. You're almost ready to build your first predictive model in RapidMiner, but first we need to deal with two very important operations for transforming your datasets into a format more suitable for training your model. More suitable for training your model. So training the model means creating the model, using the data to create the model. Okay, the beginning of this process is the same as the previous one. This is a great opportunity for you to implement what you have learned so far. We will then create a new data column, i.e. we'll generate a new attribute and remove some of the unused or unnecessary columns from the data. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. Okay, drag the transactions and products data sets into the process. So if we look for our data again, and that's in the repository, we'll look and we look in samples and data, and they ask us to look for transactions and products. So let's find product. Here's transactions. Okay, so let's drag that on and we'll put it here since they have a place for it there, and products are here. Okay, now these are actually two separate data sets, or we can think of them as two separate Excel spreadsheets. Okay, so how are we going to, if we have two separate spreadsheets, what are we going to do with that? I mean, if we have one, we've been using one at a time, so here we have two. So they say add a join operator. So let's search for the join operator. Okay, here's a join operator, and let's put it here. And connect all the operators. So let's do this, and that, and this, and that. Connect all the operators, and then specify the columns to use in the parameters. So here we are in join, and we have the parameters. So to specify the columns to use, they say click Edit List, so here, and use Product ID for the left and right key attributes. Now, before we do that, it might be good to look at the data. So we said we have two separate sets of data. We had the products and the transactions. Let's see what this looks like. Now, we might remember how to find out what a data set looks like, and that is you connect this to here, and then you just run it. And here we can see, so this is one of the data sets. So we see that we have a row number, we have a product ID, we have a product name, we have a product category, and we have a price. Okay, so that's the one of the data sets. Okay, now let's go back to here again, and here you can disconnect it like that, and let's get the other one, which is the transactions. Put that here and do the same thing. Let's connect here to here, and let's see what this looks like. Okay, so now we have customer ID, product ID, and the amount. So this is, what is this called? Transaction. So here we have this first row probably means that there was a customer with customer ID 370, and they apparently probably purchased product ID 154. They purchased 3 of them. And here is another customer, different customer ID, and they purchased product 40 ID, and they purchased 3 of them. Okay, so maybe what we should do is, okay, so here I just took a screenshot of this, and let's go back and look at the other one again. So let's go and delete this and connect here, and let's look at that. Run it up here. So let's compare these. So we can see that here we have a product ID and the name of it and some other description of it, what product category it is, and its price. And once again, here we have customer purchased product ID something. So we know that this customer purchased, and we look down product ID 154, wherever it is, they purchased that. So if we want to know the name of what they purchased, we have to look for the product ID in this table, and then we can find its name, and we can also find its price. But here we don't know that. We just know this is the transaction table, and so we just know that this customer made this purchase, 3 of them. This customer made this purchase, 3 of them. But we don't know the details of the product that they purchased. So this shows the details of the product, but it doesn't show up here. So we have 2 different tables, but they are related to each other because this shows what was purchased and it has a product ID, and this shows the details about each of the products given their ID. So these tables are definitely connected, and they're connected by this product ID column. They both have a product ID column. In this case, this shows about the product ID, it shows about the product. Given a product ID, it tells you the name of it and the price of it and so on. And this one just refers to product IDs as a purchase by a particular customer. So they definitely are related, and we could say they're related by this column has the same information or product IDs as this column. Okay, so now let's go back and bring in the join and do what they said. So we can connect here and connect there. Okay, then they say connect all the operators. Specify the columns to use in the parameters. So for the join. So here, and then click Edit List and use product ID. Okay, so use product ID for the left and right key attributes. So this, let's see, here we had the left was the retrieve products. So let's see, there's a product ID in the retrieve products, and the right is the also the product ID. That also has a product ID, and that's what we want to say, that they both are kind of related to each other by this product ID. Okay, and let's click Apply. Okay, the resulting example set contains all the transactions with the product details for the transaction. So let's try and run this and see what we get. Okay, so here we have this customer purchased this product ID, and we know the name of it now, and we know the amount. So it kind of combined both of those tables together.